that something which is hidden, that something which reveals the very structure, how consciousness itself operates, how consciousness itself expresses itself through the myriad of sounds, until it becomes forms and phenomena. And let's talk a little bit about that. So as we said earlier, that this process reflects through this very phenomenon of phonemes and consonants. And Vedic spirituality in particular, very Vedic tradition in particular, plays tremendous role to, and tremendous importance to the way the sound relates to the form. There is a Sanskrit term, Namarupa. Literally, Namarupa. Nama is the name and Rupa is form. And it creates an entirely new word, Namarupa. Name and form, they are together, inseparable. From this perspective, the sound and form are actually never separate. They become separate only at that level of vicari. And in the way certain languages evolve and develop and depart from the original, let's say, source of those languages where that connection have been uninterrupted. Are you following? So this Namarupa, that name and form, is an extremely important concept. The very essence of what spirituality born on the Indian subcontinent gave to the rest of the humanity. It's that, for that reason, I call it a sonic civilization. The intimacy between name and form. For instance, in Sanskrit language, that intimacy is never broken. From para to vicari, it's never broken. In most other languages, this intimacy remains intact. As the sound progresses towards more manifest level, it departs, as it were, from that connection, and it breaks down at the level of vicari. So whenever we say a word, that word has to carry intimately the very essence of what that word said to convey. If it doesn't, ignorance slips in. And when we say ignorance slips in, as my teacher used to say, that's the basis for suffering in the form of stress. It's a stress, because therein there is a possibility for the mind to be obscured by this very phenomenon. Because there is a possibility for, however, as soon as there is a separation between sound and form, the mind would have to work on a subtle level to restore that correlation. You see? It is another reason why mother tongue is extremely important.
What is it?
Mother tongue. Mother tongue.
Oh, mother tongue.
Tongue.
Mother tongue. Thank you. Sorry.
Because it's something which is being literally active and in place in structuring the way our mind works with the milk of the mother. Or, as Maharishi used to say, the mother tongue is the cup to drink in any given culture. It's a cup to drink tea in any given culture, more specifically. So for that reason, the cultivation of sounds in its purity through oral transmission have always been the most important, let's say, it was essential, recognized as essential in certain spiritual traditions, and certainly that was always in Vedic tradition. The recitation of Vedic hymns was very important precisely because of that, not because of holding somehow dearly to that tradition and not being able to modernize it. It is because Sanskrit is the language where there is no breakthrough. If you translate Sanskrit, it's that which allows the light to pass through, which means it's the language which does not opaque the self to shine. So when you say a Sanskrit term like prana, it doesn't just mean life force or energy or subtle air or vital air. You can find 10 English equivalents of any language you may use, but when you say prana, it's that precise meaning and form, inseparable for any instant. So when you say prana, 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 it literally fills the entire environment and vibration with very meaning of that term. This is another reason why certain terms cannot be translated, because when they are translated, they lose the capacity to convey on that subtle level, precisely because that the way consciousness itself operates when it unfolds within itself through the 4 stages of speech. There is even a verse, a Rig Vedic verse, which starts with Richo, Akshare, Parame, Vyoman, and so it goes. The sound heard, Richo, Akshare, it's that field where all the impulses of nature reside, where all the divinities of devatas, where all the laws of nature are intact. That field is between every sound manifest, or in other words, before it collapses into something particular. And that verse unfolds in the one whose awareness is open to that field. Only he or she can comprehend the meaning of the Vedas. Vedas are here the knowledge expressed through these hymns. For the one whose awareness is not open to that field, what use of all these Vedas again? What use of all this knowledge? You see? So in other words, we all speak and we all communicate from the level of consciousness, or from the level where our awareness is actually rests. So in order to have full capacity for communication, we have to be opened, or our awareness have to be opened to that field which contains all the impulses of nature, all the impulses of creative intelligence that are hidden in the form of potentialities, because waves are infinite field of potentialities. Then they only collapse into particularity. So if our awareness is not open to that field, it is always surface awareness. It's bound to slip into horizontal plane of existence. Doesn't matter how far and wide we go in our spiritual quest. Doesn't matter what mountains we climb. Doesn't matter what holy shrines we visit. It's all horizontal, you see? It's all horizontal until we introduce that vertical dimension, the dimension of the 4 levels of speech, where we can reach that para, when our awareness is expanded to the level of para. Only then our communication then enlivened to a degree where it can carry even through the gross level of manifestant speech that which is unbounded by its very nature. This is very, very important. It has nothing or has very little to do with the mind or ego. If you follow very carefully, you will see that this individuality is not an obstacle. None of these faculties of consciousness have ever been an obstacle. It may be useful to say someone who is a complete stranger to this business of self-realization. But for someone who sat enough, treaded this path enough, it's time to open up to a greater dimension of this process. And that greater dimension of this process is precisely hidden within this very knowledge, within the way consciousness expresses itself. And the 4 levels of speech are unique way of understanding that way consciousness manifests as us, through us, and it's eager to communicate. Hence, truth be spoken.